Good afternoon, welcome to the St. Martin Parish Council Committee meeting of Tuesday, August 19, 2025 at 4:30 in the Cal Fusion Meeting Room of the St. Martin Parish Government Annex Building. Please silence all cell phones, remove all hats. The public may comment upon any item which requires a vote by the St. Martin Parish Council. We ask that you fill out a request to speak form located in the back of the room. Once completed, you will bring it to me. Bring it to the sheriff's deputy who will give it to me. I'd like to call the public committee meeting to order. We're apparently late by Council President.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Amen.
Mr. Poirier, would you use the pledge of allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Everyone's here. Ms. Narcisse is excused.
Item 1, consider the adoption of a resolution requesting financial assistance from the state of Louisiana under the fiscal year 2025-2026 Local Government Assistance Program and Community Water Enrichment Fund Program.
Is this something that's done annually?
2, consider the adoption of an ordinance reducing the extent of the servitude rights of St. Martin Parish government from 100 feet to 29 feet on the northern side of the drainage channel designated as L35D, where it borders parcel number 05201A 3624, and repealing ordinance number 25-05-1489-OR.
Mr. Cassidy?
Back in March, Mr. President, to y'all, and the reduction stays the same, I just had to change some wording, because I put the southern side and it was the northern side of the drainage canal and not the parcel.
Who's distributing this in?
That'd be, trying to remember what else is there. Some Louis Drive would be,
And
Mr. Clay.
do you have any comments?
No, it's a residential area.
3, consider the adoption of an ordinance reducing the extent of the servitude rights of St. Martin Parish government from 100 feet to 25 feet on the southern side of the drainage channel designated as L34B, where it borders parcel number 06102B 3419, and repealing ordinance number 25-06-1491-OR.
Mr. Cassidy?
Once again, this was brought to your attention in April, this is for the Kitchens Catfish. It was just a word adjustment on the northern to the southern side of the canal instead of the parcel. So the sterling reduction stays the same.
4, consider the adoption of a resolution authorizing Parish President Keith Elton to execute change order number 1 in the amount of $60,654 increase for the Herman River Road Improvements Project by Elliott Construction LLC.
Mr. Jones?
This is some additional work that needs to be done to the sides of the road. It should have been inclusive in the project itself. And in fact, we told the engineer that for all of the future road projects to certainly include it. This work is not always needed on these roads. Sometimes it's needed, sometimes it's not. They had not put it in at all. We are actually, without doing final budgets on this road itself, $200,000 to $300,000 ahead of what was budgeted. So the $60,000 is not going to have any definitive effect on our bottom line on this project. But we are including this portion of the project to all of the future projects to where in the event it's needed, we don't have to come back and do any kind of change order with it.
The projects we recently did on the road projects, I know like the Woodbridge High School road, there's always my understanding that the shoulder work was included in the bid process. When it went out in January, that road is, man, we got a lot of problems with some of the roads that were just recently done with shoulders given out on them already.
It was brought to my attention, and a few of them, the issues were the actual width of the road, and in a curve, normally the larger trucks and so forth, they are going off of the road and having effects on the edges of the road. We put some more ballast in the event that that does not suffice. We'll come back and do some kind of permanent addition to be able to subsidize that turn. We are looking at it, and there again, it just works in progress to where if we know it's going to be a reoccurring effect on some of these roads, we're trying to take care of it before the effect.
Thank you. Mr. Cordero.
So if we, going forward, if we have to start adding this contingency, I mean, do you see that causing a potential issue like with our road projects coming up later this year? I mean, is it gonna kind of trap us on some of our budget money? I mean, I don't know if we're gonna look at doing a percentage or just in case, or I'm just curious, I know we're kind of locked solid on the money we have in the road we're gonna do, so. I mean, obviously it's a good idea so we don't get surprises, but should we have to look at altering what we're gonna have available, I guess we gotta do our roads?
I really believe that what our previous protocol in looking at these things and dealing with the engineering firm and bringing to their attention, let's just say, this thing here on Herman Dupuy, knowing full well that there are certain roads that this may come into play in the future, to take care in making sure that these things are addressed in the bidding process. As I said, this is not gonna happen on every road. In fact, it would be a small minority of roads. But I think just a little bit more due diligence by the engineers, we can put this into where these problems, they're not problems, they're just occurrences that happen in these projects, that it's all inclusive and it's been taken care of. We'll just pay a little bit more attention in the future to it.
Thank you.
5, consider the adoption of a resolution authorizing and directing the parish president to execute for and on behalf of the St. Martin Parish government a certificate of substantial completion pertaining to the Boone Lassen Road Repairs Project, St. Martin Parish, Louisiana.
Mr. Nelson.
Yeah, this was just, of course, Boone Lassen occurring, probably about 10 months ago, the last, grinding season, if you'll remember. And what had happened was, documents were sent to the contractor to get filled out and returned. And, there was a glitch between, the project manager, Hugh Hall, and the contractor, and we never received those documents. So when it was brought up a couple of weeks ago, we found out exactly what happened. All of the filings have occurred, and we're now just completing these substantial completions and getting the additional monies to the contractor.
6, Councilmember Carlos Jean-Baptiste to discuss fiber services in District 2.
Ms. Jean-Baptiste.
Yeah, at the last meeting, one of the, concerns I had was about how the fiber, the work that was being done, the additional work that was being done in District 2 was impacting, our current fiber situation. I did ask Mr. Lee to give me an opinion to kind of look at that. And so one of the things, a couple of things. One, I just wanted to be made known to the administrative side of it that when AT&T, and I'm not talking about off of 182, the state highway or SME, but in the residential areas, when there's an issue with AT&T cutting the current fiber that was laid down by Cajun Broadband, and the most recent one was 13 issues that they had to fix recently. They are having to splice the current fiber, which is ultimately impacting the strength of the fiber that they have because it's no longer a continuous flow of fiber. And so in looking at this, I know we met with AT&T on the 18th of June to discuss the concerns because it was brought to my attention right around that time that AT&T was doing work in the district. And so we had a meeting that I thought would help us to get some understanding of what transpired and to make sure the residents were being taken care of. But I have since then found out from your letters of no objection that when we met on the 18th of June, you had already started signing letters of objection since May the 27th. And you even signed one on June the 17th, right before we met. Was it June the 17th? June the 17th, the day before we met. And it was just very discouraging that we took all this time to meet with these individuals to try to come up with a solution. And it was presented like the administrative side was not aware of all of this going on, when I have signed by you, Mr. Delco, drawn up by, I guess, the planning department, all of these letters of no objection. And so, had we been more transparent in talking about this, I think we could have informed the residents about what's happening with AT&T. I do know that AT&T has not contacted some of these residents, because I've gotten called recently that there's damage and they're trespassing outside of the right-of-way in their yard. And so I'm gonna say at this point, I'm gonna request that we get a committee together to kind of look at how we processing some of this information, so that way we can do what, or at least I can do what I was elected to do, and that's represent the people. I can't inform them of what's happening if I'm not given the accurate information or we being transparent with it. Now, yes, they fixed the dog fence, but there's still additional damages that's being done. And we invested too much money with Cajun Broadband through a cooperative endeavor agreement to have fiber, to let a company that had no interest with us in the very beginning to come in and destroy what's being done. And now we having to repair and piecemeal for services that millions have been invested in. And so I'm asking for us to consider making a committee and evaluating this process, because right now they're in District 2. That doesn't mean they won't get to District 1 through District 9. So we just really need to look at this process and get on the same page. And I thought we had a good plan in place, but when I'm finding out that these letters were signed way before and was never disclosed to me, is very disheartening. And that's why I'm asking for stuff in black and white, so I can actually see what's going on. So I understand you have the right to do letters of no objection, but the process and the manner, I feel like we're letting the community and the resident down, and those are the people that we are ultimately responsible for, because they elected us to make sure that government treated them fairly and equally. And so I'm gonna make that request, for us to develop a committee.
So, Ms. Jones, I have a question. So, when you brought this to our attention a while back, this was done after we had the discussion about AT&T coming in and cutting lines? This was done again after?
Yes, I got pictures as far as on the 14th, of additional service, and Cajun Broadband has gone out and whatnot. And Mr. Duckham, I know you did share with me that, with the 811, with the road boundaries and so forth, I did go back and follow up, but the information that was given to Cajun Broadband and where they placed it was within it. And so it could have been just a mishap with that, but that's off of the state highway. I'm not worried about that because we have no control over that part. But I'm talking about the areas where, in the residential areas, like Duchamp, Dujaquette, Duchesne, Deanna, and so there was 13, to be exact, 13 letters of no objection that was, signed. Some before the meeting and some after the meeting. And like I said, I understand you have the right to do that, but when we're working together and being able to present the information to the constituents, I would have appreciated some notice in that way the conversations could have been totally different. And us being able to continue to work forward with that. And that's all. I'll have any other information. I'll get with you after the fact to set up a meeting to fully discuss and see how we can move forward in a better manner from here.
Ms. Holly, you have some information you want to share with us?
Yes, just to clarify, the letters were prepared on those dates, Ms. Carla, but the letters were not signed off by Parish President Duckham until July 30th. And the letters were sent via email, and the files were so large that some of the emails did not go through. So the remainder were resent July 31st, and you were aware of that. I told you all of that information.
Last week on Thursday, but
Right,
this is,
when you asked for
this
it.
is before my conversation was on June 18th, which you were not a part of, when we went on site to meet with them. And my only concerns is if he signed it on the 31st, these letters are dated May 27th.
Right, because that's when
So-
I prepared them, and he told me to hold off on them. So they did not get any of those letters until July 30th and July 31st, when he signed off on them.
Well, public records, that doesn't look good for us, because if I'm looking at this and I don't have any of that information.
Right, I understand that.
It looks like it was done May the 27th.
I just wanted to clarify that again.
So I think one of the things is that we don't have policies in places. We have abstract processes that was done from wherever and whenever. And I think that as we move forward, times have changed and we need to just do things a little bit more efficient and look at where we are in today's society. So I think we do need to have policies and procedures or written processes in place so we can have some understanding.
Right,
Because as you're aware, when things come up, I call you so that way we can be communicating the same thing to the constituents. But if I'm getting one information, and then something else totally comes up, and then I'm blindsided and getting calls from residents saying, hey, AT&T is back, and no notification is given to me to keep the constituents, informed of that, then we're doing a disjustice. And that's not what I was elected for.
I'm
I
just,
said that I would follow up and keep them abreast, and I can only do that, and I'm only as good as the staff that I'm working with.
right, and that's good if we all wanna work together to get a policy in place. I'm all for that.
Ms. Alamo, I have a question. I thought it was my understanding that as long as somebody's working on the rules, it's not like somebody actually going to pass through your property. And they can sign a letter of no objection by parish resident that allows them to traverse the property lines.
The letter of
Which is all.
objections, from my understanding, are to do work in the village. That's what our
It
letter
was,
said.
but my understanding was that anytime that somebody comes in the parish and it's gonna be digging in within our right of way, then they have to come to the front of the parish governing body, which is the parish council, to be able to get an ordinance passed, to be able to allow them to put fiber, actually put fiber down the side of our right of ways. Isn't that correct?
Go ahead and answer.
Yeah, let me handle it on
And
my.
I'm sure Ms. Domatis will, we wrote, I researched that issue, sent her opinion, she asked, kind of outlined what we need in ordinance, what we do not. So according to the home rule charter, an ordinance is required to dispose of any real property, if they are leased any real property or acquired property. And I don't think digging in the right of way falls under any of that circumstance. Optimum was a little different. They formally asked the council or parish government for a right of use agreement in our right of ways, which I fell under section 11, which was to convey or lease parish government property. So no, the home rule charter decided there's no ordinance needed to traverse in the right of way or work in it or lay fiber optic lines. The optimal ordinance wasn't to approve for the digging of the fiber optic lines, it was to approve the right of way agreement and give them the right to be there formally. So if y'all get that opinion, I'm sure Ms. Romanti's won't have a problem with that.
I'll email it to everybody. And so that's what my whole point is with some of this. We have one opinion in how things should be done. Optimum went one way, AT&T went another way. There's no consistency in how we're addressing all of this. So we need to get, if not an ordinance, we need a process of how we're doing this so that way, and this is a new issue. Mr. Dell, I'm not totally blaming you for any of this. Fiber is new in our parish, and we were trying to be proactive with having some things in place, and we were excited about our parish being the first one to utilize the government monies and moving forward and being proactive with doing cooperative agreements, with private vendors. But as we move forward, there's gonna be a lot of new ventures that's gonna be coming our way, and we need to be proactive, and if we're not proactive, and we have to be reactive, we need to make sure that we get some processes, because society and times and things are moving fast, and if we don't keep up with it and adjust to the changes, we're gonna have a room full of angry residents and constituents cutting up. And that's not what we trying to be about. We wanna be able to service all of the residents, whether they're in District 2 or District 9, and provide quality services from a governmental perspective.
I can remember some times when we not just having fiber in the right of way, but we have water lines that are running over from different water company, water sources, and I know they've come to parish government before to get permission to do their water line. I just wanted
That
to-
being said, we don't have any record of that, Mr. Tozan, you know, and the only records that we have were, from the inception of the home rule charter, from, Mr. Angel and Mr. Cormier and Mr. Cedars, and now myself. The only right of way that was brought up was the other day with Optimum. So we have no precedence or history showing that. And, I mean, I asked Ms. Morgan to go back, and she pulled projects from each of the administrations leading to this point, each one digging 3,000 feet, CLECO, AT&T. So with all of the precedents, what we are doing, what I did, was nothing more than what was always done in the past, inclusive of the actual letters that were sent out. Now, and I did address Ms. Carla yesterday, if there is need for a change, or if there is something else that y'all want to do to put some meat into some of this, or to change some of this, if an ordinance needs to be done, you know, that's council. But, I just wanted to say that whatever's been done, whatever I did was just normal, procedure and administrative procedures as to what was done over the last 25 years.
And all I'm asking is for consideration and respect when things are being done in District Two, that I can be a part of that. So that way I can continue to communicate with the constituents and keep them abreast of the things that's happening specifically in my district.
I think that question would be open for all the council members, whatever's going on in our districts, in order to have communication, you know, what's happening, so we can communicate back with the constituents.
Seven, questions from council members on parish issues?
District one? District two?
I don't have anything else right now.
District three? District four? District five? I know I've been getting a lot of phone calls, I was gonna try to get here early, Jason, and talk to you about it, running kind of late, for the drawdown enhancement with the locks. We having some issues with the lock right now?
As of right now, the locks are open about a foot to a foot and a half. We're at 7.03 in Pell Bay right now, and we're trying to keep that range right there, because at the pontoon bridge, we're at 6.2, so we're trying to keep that range from there, from Pell Bay to the pontoon bridge, around 7.6.
So,
range.
how much more are we gonna go down on the Belgrade gauge to where we're gonna?
We're trying to stay at 7.
Stay at 7.
Right now, the locks are completely inoperable. We have busted hoses on the far gate, and we are in the process with the opening up the bid on next week to start the repairs on
So when we close at 7, we're gonna start the repair work right after.
it. Within the week, as long as the river still cooperates with us, it's going down.
Cause I had a few businesses that reached out to me from District 5, landings and stuff, saying, you know, they was getting to the point to where you're kind of having a little bit concerned because, you know, household being stuck in the budget also. You were just asking what the level we're gonna try, so 7 feet in the
7 feet, the Belgrade gauge, we're trying to stay at 7 feet.
Thank you.
In reference to that, Mr. Tillman, I've been in touch with, Mr. Tucker, of course, with his concerns and so forth, people that actually work on the lake, with Mr. Brock Sawyers with the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, and, the coordination of everybody. Wildlife and Fisheries would like to bring it down to the 6-foot level to get the maximum effect. At 6 foot, there is, the Chittiwater tribe, you cannot go any lower than that. They have, properties and burial rights within that area that we can't go under 6 foot. At 6.5, Mr. Tucker is at bottom but not listed. So we need to keep it somewhere between 6.5 and 7 to be able to give him that effect. That was relayed on to Wildlife and Fisheries to where we need to work together. It may not be exactly what everybody wants, but I think if we give a little bit, and I think all the participants that are involved in this have given and taken, and we should be able to do the drawdown and get the effects needed by wildlife and fisheries, and still have the commercial and tourism and private entities that use the lake over the next couple of 3 months. It is a window of opportunity for us to be able to work on that control structure. We're using Go Mesa money that was available from the Butler Road Bridge, and we're actively doing some much needed repairs and hopefully doing some construction to where we're not gonna have these busted pipes and hydraulic hoses, and we're doing a revamp of the HPU system. We're actually doing some proactive and preventative measures to where we don't have to continue going through this dog and pony show every year. And I'm looking forward to hopefully completing it this year, if not completing it next year at this time when the water levels allow us to work on the control structure.
Thank you. District 6?
My questions were answered previously, so we're good.
District 7?
Yes, sir. But I have one, address this to Mr. Delphine.
Yes, sir.
I'm still getting a lot of complaints for potable drinking water and Church Resort Road. Could you let us know about the status of where we at on this? Cause they say they've been trying to get this for about 30 years. And, you know, so that's way before me. It could have been, like you said, Montreal, Cormier, Mr. Cedars, as a matter of fact, came with me to in the area maybe twice in person. Then we met at the library, brought Mr. Cedars with the group in person again. And still nothing has done. I know you came up with Boxcar Road project, which you were doing, but that was after Church Resort Road. The people still don't have drinking water, they can't take a bath. They got yellow rings in the toilet and everything, and they, you know, they're still complaining. What can we do?
Well, as I explained prior to this, the water service that services that area, you have two viable water services. You have the city of Breaux Bridge, and they said that they do not want to expand. We cannot force an entity to expand their services. And we have Cecilia Water. And Cecilia Water said in the event monies were made available, that they have the ability and would expand to Ches Broussard. I'm also getting actively, as we speak, Highway 94, Mills Avenue, going all the way to the Lafayette Parish line. So, but that being said, this is a private entity. And we are not, or do not have the ability to use parish money and or state money to provide an individual entity such as Cecilia Water to expand their lines. We can't use our money and we can't use state money. I've gone to Baton Rouge and that's the answer that they have given to me. Now, if some way, shape or form that the parish and its entity could possibly come up with match money to possibly, and again, these are all possibilities, but it has to come from the state. We don't have the money to, you know, it's at least a $2 to $3 million project minimal to be able to run the lines that you're talking about. And without state intervention, and the state's telling me they can't do it because it's a private entity. And if somebody could give me some answers as to how we can do it, or how we can make this happen, I'm all open and I'm all ears.
Well, thank you, Mr. Delphine, but you saying that to run the lines is on private property?
No, I'm saying that the monies to be able to do the project, the monies that are needed to do the project, they would be tying into an individual entity, Cecilia Water. It's not under the umbrella of St. Martin Parish government. It's a private entity. And as a public institution, we cannot give monies to a private entity, even if it behooves and it services the parishioners of St. Martin Parish. And I mean, I sit in this position, but I'm telling you what was told to me as to what the law is and what we can and can't do with public money. And we can't give public money to a private entity, even if the service is needed and amenable. We need to be able to breach that and get that money to whoever to be able to give these services to the people.
Well, the problem we have right now is the water line stuff, I think it's on Mill Highway. Sawmill Highway.
Yes, sir.
And then Cecilia Water, Mr. Gabriel with Cecilia Water told me that they stopped because they ran out of funds.
Yes, sir.
And to continue there, somebody have to come in with the funds, but to me, it's a parish issue, it's not private. Them people need to drink clear water, and they need to take a bath in clear water. And it's our responsibility to do it. Put them outside and call them in. You know, like I said, we met several times at their house, just to see this guy with me in person too. And I was told by a guy come here, and I think the guy spoke with you too.
Yes, you did. Yes, I did. I
$2
spoke to you.
million venture, that's a drop in the bucket. We're gonna get that as soon as possible. I didn't hear anything after this. So if they can help them people, I appreciate it.
If I could get the law changed, if I could get some way, shape, or form to be able to give public money to a private entity, I'm all ears and I'm all in.
Okay.
I mean, there again, Mr. Vincent, if it could have been done by now with what I just explained, if it could have been done by now, I'm sure it would have been done by now. By God, or by Mr. Sears, or by myself, if we had the ability to do it what is needed. However, our hands are tied in regards to what we can do with public money, or even going to Baton Rouge to try and get a capital outlay project. It's still giving money to a private entity. Celia Water is a private entity.
Okay, I'm gonna tell them to go online and what you just said, to read the minutes now. Because that way they don't have to keep calling me.
It's fine, sir. It's fine.
Thank you.
Mr. Alexander, one thing we can do, we can reach out to federal and state funding, there's grants and stuff that we can help to apply for with the Cecilia Water Company. We had Gene Greenwald, he works for Johnson at Kennedy's office. He had reached out to a few of the council members and stuff about maybe some grant money, some funding that might be available. We can set up a meeting with him to discuss it, and I don't know what you've done from, I understand I had an issue in Catahoula until we came up with this thing with to be able to do a water consolidation to try to help those people, because our situation over there was that we didn't qualify for the grants and all, because, the average household didn't use July stuff. But maybe some of that might be, some that we can work with and stuff, and look into it and see if we can do something. Maybe we can set up a meeting and meet with a beat and see if we can get, a few of the guys election year next year. So a lot of those senators that are running for re-election might be willing to help us out, maybe see if there's some funding on the grant that we can do to assist the CEO water system and extend that line. I see Mr. Eddie LeBron's here, and I just wanted to recognize him, he's with the city of Oak Ridge. And I know speaking to the mayor and speaking to the council there, they would love to be able to afford to be able to get water down that road. It's been talked about hundreds of times. Mr. Sears had several meetings and stuff. The reason the city and the mayor don't want, it's not that they don't want to, but they don't want to put their system in a bind to where they overextend the system, and the system isn't able to handle the growth and development that's going to be coming to the city of Oak Ridge. So their system is designed to be able to handle what they have now, and with the Mills Extension Avenue going to Don Ellison, and they grew there, and what they incorporated across, where corporate teaching is in that area there. If you were to go beyond that, the system would be able to handle. So speaking for Mr. LeBron and the council and the mayor and the city of Oak Ridge, that's the reason they can't extend their system. And which I understand, because they don't want to put their system mind taking a more, bigger customer base than the actual distance behind the hand. So, but if we wanna try to do something in the state or federal, I mean, we can get our representatives, our state senators, maybe to try to reach out to everybody that works for the Senate, maybe, Cleveland office, we can get a few people, put a meeting together and see if there's something. We can try that if you want, I mean, it's been tried before, but I know it's an issue for you, and if we can help you, we want to try to help.
Thank you.
We have an extension on this afternoon, I need a motion and a second to extend the agenda. Or district, oh, I'm sorry, district eight, district nine.
I'll use my time, but I did have my budget, I was gonna ask a quick question.
Okay,
Do we know, when you're driving on Chester Shore, I think when you get to box score, that's about where the parish line is at, right, Mr. Vincent? It's about where Lafayette stores. Who services those houses in Lafayette Parish? Is that Lafayette Consolidated Government? I'm just curious, I know we just did an annex deal with the water system in Broussard, is that not, have we ever approached Lafayette about trying to pick those houses up, and help them
No,
out?
we didn't do an annex, this correct, that we allowed them to be able to provide service to the residents.
Yes, Your Honor, I'm sorry.
That's exactly where.
But seriously, I mean, have we ever approached Lafayette about picking up those handful of houses down Chester Broussard?
Well, let's have a meeting, executive.
That's how we get to.
Whatever, and then we can discuss.
It doesn't just happen there, I mean, Chris has somebody in his district, in fact, I think Mr. Ed used to live down there, there's like 5 houses down the road. They're gonna get shit water, and it just, they can't get them water, it happens more than you think, and.
Well, that's a possibility.
Yeah. District 9 is good, by the way.
A completed constituents work order for request forms for July 2025 were submitted.
You good? We have an extension this afternoon, I need a motion and second to extend the agenda. I have a motion by Mr. Corville, second by Mr. Clay. Call for the vote.
Nine, District 5, Councilmember Chris Cozen to defer to former Parish President Chester Cedars for comments on the recently released legislative auditor's report on the removal of the Cypress Island small banks by Lafayette Consolidated Government in February 2022.
Mr. Cedars?
Well, let me first state that Mr. Delphin seems a lot cooler back here.
I can see the complacency in your face back there. I envy you. Thank you, sir.
Couple general remarks, I think you'll know why I'm here. Let me be candid, I had a great deal of trepidation about whether I should accept this invitation to appear before the council to give remarks about the recently concluded legislative auditor's report regarding the removal of the small banks. You know, with the exception of some initial remarks I made after the small banks were removed in February of 2022. I made those remarks at this council on March 15th of 2022. If you got a moment, you might want to access that tape and listen to the remarks, because it was about 45 minutes or so in length, where I reviewed the entire history of the dealings with this parish, St. Martin Parish in general, with me in particular, relative to a proposed project involving the small banks in the Cypress Island community. And the reasons I kept quiet, other than those initial remarks, was twofold. The first reason, I didn't want this controversy to be viewed as some sort of personal feud between me and the personnel at Lafayette Consolidated Government at that time. Second reason was that the matter was involved in litigation within a week or so after my appearance on March 15th, and remains in litigation till today. However, I think it's almost impossible to remain solid as a consequence of this headline in the Morning Advocate this morning. And more importantly, I think it's very difficult for me to remain solid in view of some of the comments that were made in the Lafayette Consolidated Government Investigative Audit that was conducted by and completed by the Louisiana Legislative Auditor. I have the report. It's very comprehensive. I have reviewed it with some light and night reading. And there's some statements made in the report that I don't think can go without some sort of comment. And I think the comments are important because it clarifies some things, it corrects some misstatements, and more importantly, I think the comments I'm about to make justifies every single solitary move that this council and the former council made as a consequence of the surreptitious removal, the Puritan movement of the small banks in February of 2022. And look, I'm not here to gloat because I told you so. If you go back to March 15th, I told you. But this is not an opportunity to gloat. It's not what I want to do. Because here's what I want to implore you to do as a council, as a parish government. Keep your eye on the ball. The whole reason we raised hell about this was to protect the people of this parish in general and to protect the people of the Cypress Island community. That's our objective, okay? We can't lose sight of that because there's nothing in this comprehensive report that puts those small banks back or that imparts any kind of scientific conclusion that there's no harm posed to that community by virtue of the removal of those banks, okay? So we've got to keep our focus. And look, there's not anything I'm going to say that's directed at the current administration of Lafayette Consolidated Government. This new administration that took office in January of 2024 been very cooperative on occasions with me in terms of answering some questions that occurred. Okay, with that as a backdrop, and I'm going to try to go quick, but this might take a little while because it's important. I am not going to do what I did on March 15th and go down every meeting that I had, but I'm going to give you some key meetings that took place that are critical to discount some statements that warrants our attention. And I think as a starting point, we need to look at the Appendix C of this report. On page 7 of Appendix C, I'm going to read what was stated. I want you to listen very closely to these words. St. Martin Parish's opposition appeared, they're talking about the opposition to the removal of the small banks. They're talking about the opposition to the initial core permit that was requested by LCG in 2020. St. Martin's Parish's opposition, 2021 when the permit was applied for. St. Martin Parish's opposition appeared to be largely due to misinformed public opinion rather than the merits of the original small bank project. In fact, the objection was apparently filed without St. Martin Parish ever seeing models upon which the permit application was based. That's true, because it never gave us any models. Anyway, let me continue. The St. Martin Parish President, Chester Cedars, proudly shared that he actually vetted the objection himself, despite having no formal background in the area. Notably, St. Martin Parish refused the courtesy of providing a copy or even notifying Lafayette Parish of its objection to the permit. Let me stop right there. Lafayette Parish never told us they applied for a permit. Secondly, they received a copy of the opposition to that permit that we filed with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. And that's going to become important in a few minutes. After learning of the objection, Lafayette Parish tried to work with Cedars to appease his concerns. The parish had multiple meetings, and Lafayette Parish shared its data. You'll see differently in a few moments. The data showed benefits to the entire region and no harm to St. Martin Parish, but Cedars could not be appeased. He demanded more and more studies. These meetings and demands for more time were likely just delay tactics. Cedars has since suggested that he was opposed to any small bank project from the outset. This was unbeknownst to Lafayette Parish, who was trying to work with St. Martin Parish and believed Cedars was proceeding in good faith while he was doing everything he could to stop Lafayette Parish from completing any small bank project. When it became clear that Cedars was operating in bad faith, Lafayette Parish decided to revise the original small bank process and simply proceed. Okay. I might be pulling that out in a few moments. I keep notes of every meeting that takes place, every phone call I have that's of any significance, and I haven't had the opportunity to review the entire file that we have, that the parish has regarding this matter, but I do have some of my personal notes that I was able to resort to, and I think we're going to get a real accurate picture of what happened in this process. Again, I'm not going to go down meeting by meeting by meeting, call by call like I did March 15th, but I'm going to give you some information that's very important for you to know, especially in the newer council members. December 10th, 2020, there was a meeting right here in this room. And in that particular meeting, there were representatives from LCG. And they wanted to talk about a concept of regional flood control that would include removal, or at that time, just gapping supposedly of the spoil banks. I made it quite clear during that presentation and afterwards to my personnel who was at that meeting, our Director of Public Works, that, and some other public works officials, I made it clear that we had no problem whatsoever with Lafayette Consolidated Government paying for any sort of study they wanted to do. However, the fact that they had no issue with doing the study should not be translated or interpreted as meaning that I have no objection relative to the development of an actual project which would cause or result in the introduction of water into the Cypress Island community. That was made clear December 10th to Lafayette Consolidated Government officials. I followed that up with a memorandum that was disseminated to the parish council and to the entire staff. And I'll make it real clear. I have no opposition to LCG sponsoring, financing any other study associated with the gapping of the spoil banks in Cypress Island area. The fact that I have no opposition to a further study is not to be interpreted or translated as my embracing any sort of project which will direct any additional water whatsoever into St. Martin Parish. The use of the term Cypress Island swamp is misleading and that it implies that this region of our parish is void of any homes or other developments. As all of you are acutely aware, this is simply not the case. Number 4, I will vociferously oppose and object to any project that places any home, business, agricultural property, infrastructure, or recreational area at peril of receiving any additional water simply to alleviate watershed issues in Lafayette Parish or any other parish. My initial objection regarding this study is not that it was initiated. Rather, this concept, which is in bold print, was developed without Sanborn Parish being afforded the courtesy of any advance notice. Particularly disconcerting is that LCG officials visited with their legislative delegation at least on October 1, 2020 concerning this matter, and emails were circulated that the project would be funded. So I want to make it clear what our position was. I don't know how clear I can be. But it continues. I learned on March 18, 2021, that an engineer had been hired by LCG to undertake a study to develop what they call a model of what would happen if the spoil banks were removed. Our Director of Public Works communicated with LCG and they said, oh, it's just a study, don't worry about the model. You will get, Sanborn Parish will get any data, any information, any conclusions that that model will generate. March 18, 2021. April 13, 2021. Got a call from a television station wanting to interview me. There was a group, a private entity, or well-intentioned people, I'll leave it at that had gone on television to talk about the removal of the spoil banks. That generated some interest with the news media. They wanted to interview me, and I was told when I spoke to the reporter, oh yeah, well, we're gonna talk to the mayor, president, the day before we talk to you or the day after, so when can we talk to you? Well, that kind of piqued my interest, so I immediately made a phone call and had a conversation with the mayor, president of Lafayette Parish, and said, what the hell's going on? Almost identical to the words I said. And he said, oh, there's no problem, I don't know how all this came out. I agree with you that we need more data, and certainly this thing shouldn't be on TV. It's everything is being developed. In fact, the decision or the statement, the bottom line is we should have no interviews. Both of us think there's nothing to gain and we have to say something. If we have to say something, it will be a joint statement. All data will be submitted to St. Martin Parish government, you can be assured. Well, at that point in time, I instructed my Director of Public Works to find me an independent engineer outside this area that would be ready to help us evaluate any type of modeling that might actually evolve from this concept. And this was a conversation that was taking place April 13, 2021. Mr. Poirier, you now enter the picture. If you remember, this area in Mr. Poirier's district generated a lot of concern. Mr. Poirier and I met with a couple of the citizens and we said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a neighborhood meeting in the Cypress Island community just to let them know who we are and what our position is going to be. A public meeting, a public neighborhood meeting, so that we can share with them what our position is, which is simply, we will not endorse or embrace any project that will introduce any additional water into St. Martin Parish. And we had that meeting. And that meeting, April 29th, 2021. And by the way, before that meeting, go back and look at my April 2021 President's report. And you're gonna see that just what I told you, I put in that report in writing. So go back and look at it. So, April 29th, I show up. I think it was near your home, Mr. Poirier, or someplace. There was a crowd of people there. First person I saw was a representative of the United States Corps of Army Engineers. Found that a little bit strange, so I approached him. Mr. Barisco is his name. Nice little guy. I think you might have been with me when I approached him, Mr. Poirier. Unfortunately, our conversation was not so cordial because my first question to him was, why is the United States Army Corps of Engineers at this neighborhood meeting to talk about, and his response, well, I'm going to talk about the project for which the application has been filed for a permit. My response was twofold. One, why are you coming to this parish to talk about some sort of project without contacting the parish president and informing him you would be here talking about it? It's a little bit of a protocol issue. Then I followed up with, what project? Oh, you didn't know? Well, apparently not, that's why I'm asking. Lafayette Consolidated Government has applied for a permit to remove the small banks. First we ever hear of the application for the permit. Okay. Well, we had a nice conversation, nice meeting, and we were able to speak, and I think Mr. Poirier and I were able to kind of impart to the community, hey, we're not going to participate in anything that's going to cause you guys some harm. As a matter of fact, I happened to bring my file concerning this matter and had my memorandum that I had written way back in December 2002. All right. Next day, I got more things that developed at that meeting, but I won't go into those now. For example, the text message I received while I was speaking to the community, that message being from the Lafayette Consolidated Government Mayor President saying, oh, I understand you're at a meeting and don't worry, we'll never do anything to hurt St. Mark's Parish. And at another setting, I'll tell you how I think that Mayor President learned I was speaking to the Cypress Island community. Well, we immediately the next day, I think it was a Thursday, we had a meeting. That Friday, I told my Director of Public Works, Urea is going to work Saturday because we found a response with the Corps to the Lafayette Consolidated Government application for a permit to remove the small banks. That's step number one I took. Step 1A I took the next day was getting on the phone and contacting a law firm outside this area, independent of these issues, and tell them I need your help because I'm on the verge of getting into a little fight. So, as a result of that meeting, I got a call. LCG wanted to confirm. They wanted to meet about this issue. That was May 27th. I have my notes from that meeting. I don't think I need them, but I'm just going to turn to them just in case. Well, that wasn't one of the nicest meetings because I expressed my chagrin at how all of this had developed and explained to them, hey, let's reverse the roles that put yourself in my position. We've been talking about a concept, and now suddenly you got a project for which you have applied for a court permit. You don't apply for a court permit unless you got some specifics, right? Oh man, I'm sorry. And I said, well, you showed me nothing. Oh, you got to understand, there's going to be no harm to anybody. And there was a couple of engineers from LCG there. Oh, there's not going to be a problem. Well, give me your modeling, give me your studies. Oh, you don't have them? Well, hell no, I don't have them. You know that. Well, we'll give them to you. Well, they got them to you. That evening, about 6 p.m., we received for the first time any sort of modeling about this potential project for the first time, May 27th, 2021. As an aside, that model, that study was submitted to an independent engineer that we, St. Martin Parish government, had retained to advise us to evaluate any kind of proposal about the removal of these fall banks. Alex Giller with Blue Wing Consultants, and we went outside the area. And so there would be no influence of anyone on this particular person as he evaluated. And we'll get to what his conclusions were. All right, September 27th rolls around. Now, we've had some more dealings, okay? September 27th, 2021 rolls around, and I get some communications from Daryl O'Hara with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. His instructions or information that he imparted to me on that day was that, quote, Lafayette Consolidated Government has informed us it is no longer interested in pursuing the small bank removal activities in St. Martin Parish. Hallelujah, right? Well, I picked up the phone and called our attorneys and informed them what had happened. And I said, don't put your file up, because I don't quite trust what's happening. That was an understatement. Couple phone calls were made, couple things happened. Bottom line is that on October 14, 2021, again, I'm not getting into all the details of what happened in the interim. Go to that tape from March 15, 2022, and you'll see. But anyway, on October 14, 2021, a meeting is arranged here at St. Martin Parish, right in that room, between, or among me and I thought the parish president or the mayor president of Lafayette Consolidated Government. Well, I got the list of people somewhere, but there was a group of people from Lafayette Consolidated Government. They must have had to shut the office down. There's so many of them, they're already there. Their attorney, 2 engineers, several other individuals with the Public Works Department. And they wanted to know why my consultant and I did not agree with the modeling they had done. And of course, when I got our consultant's report and his concerns, I'll tell you, it was shared with LCG. My remarks was, I'm asking the country lawyer what the scientific engineering issues are with the study. Let's put the engineers in that room and let them work on it, not the politicians. And that, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I think that's pretty much how that resolved itself, except that we were told from that meeting, don't worry, Mr. President. President said you're going to get all the studies and all the data we got, everything we fed in, and all the numbers. You'll have all that. To this day, I don't think we've ever gotten it. No, I don't think we've never gotten it. But anyway, that was October 14th. Well, December 13th, 2021, in that room, our engineers, my director of public works, they all met. And it was agreed, data was given to them, the objections and issues that our engineer had was discussed in detail with their being LCG's engineers. All right, this is the solution we're gonna come up with. This is what I think y'all need to do to give us a model that might be a more accurate picture, that might address what our concerns are relative to the removal of small banks. You're gonna get them, you're gonna get them. So that was reported back to me. I took a deep breath. Well, maybe we're gonna make some headway on this thing. Flash forward now to March 8th, 2022. A gentleman, who I thought a great deal of, he's deceased now, comes into my office. Pro probably knows who I'm talking about. He came into my office and he said, got a problem. Small banks have been removed. Oh, Mr. Ward, you gotta be kidding me. No, they've been removed. Here's the pictures. Well, I made a call, just the mayor president. The call was returned, he wasn't available. When the call came in, I brought two of my staff members into my office. I put the mayor president on speaker so they could hear. And said, Mr. Mayor President, did you remove those small banks? Yes, I did. It's going to help both of us, that's what the sign says. So it might be what your sign says. Then I said, now here's another question. Why didn't you pay me a professional courtesy to let me know you were going to do it? There was a hesitation. I'll never forget his comments. Well, you got me on that, I'll not bother you with my response because it's probably irrelevant, but the conversation ended. March 8th, 2022. The position of St. Martin Parish, articulated to me by our engineer from the moment that he rendered his first report to me on this issue. That report was rendered August, maybe August 7th. I haven't, in the files that are here that I haven't reviewed, I think it was August 7th or thereabout of 2021. The position of our engineers, or our engineer to study this, was real simple. I'm going to put it in layman's terms. The removal of the small banks by Lafayette Consolidated Government was a no-risk proposition for Lafayette Parish. No risk to them to remove it. Except it cost them $3.9 million. But anyway, no risk to Lafayette Consolidated Government. At best, the risks to St. Martin Parish are undefined. There's not been enough study, enough data to evaluate the risk to St. Martin Parish, environmentally or otherwise. No risk, undefined risk. Now you tell me what position St. Martin Parish should take. Moreover, the report from the engineer says what LCG's report have not demonstrated was the impact of the removal of small banks on other waterways within the Cypress Island area, including but not limited to Bayou Part 2, but you could throw a rock from where the small banks were removed there, and Cooley Crow, I think it's called. He said there's got to be a study. We've got to have some kind of idea of what impact increasing the volume of water or increasing the rate of flow will have on those waterways. None of that's been done. And until you can get the data fed into these models that will address that, undefined risk. So, I was in bad faith. They ever knew what my position was? Not true. Everybody knew what my position was because it had been publicly stated, even to this council, on many occasions. So that's bad faith. If protecting your community is bad faith, I plead guilty, okay? Tar and feather. But don't take the small things. That was anything but bad faith. Two more observations that cuts across all of this. In the response to this audit, there's in the course of the litigation, in the course of the public, comments by LCG on this matter since the removal of those small banks, there's always been references made. Well, in 1995, the United States Army Corps of Engineers did a study and recommended the removal of the small banks. They refer to that as the 1995 reconnaissance study. Yeah, there was a study in 1995 called the reconnaissance study. Yes, it talked about the small banks, but it never recommended they remove it. It was a reconnaissance study. A reconnaissance study means, well, you know, one of the things we need to look at relative to the water situation on the Vermilion is the small banks. That needs to be studied. The impact of the removal needs to be studied. Never was. It was simply a study saying a study needed to be conducted. There's also reference made to a ULL study, I think, after the 2016 flood. The author of that study never, well, basically this is what the author, I'm given to understand, which by the way, our director of public works had conversations with him, basically said, well, you know, you remove the small banks, it might have a minimal effect on the reduction of the water level of the Vermilion. And he was talking about removing like 8,000 linear feet. I think we had 1,000 feet moved here, but anyway, neither here nor there. What he did say, that was very important, was, well, we shouldn't do anything until we study the effects of the removal of the small banks on St. Martin Parish. Verifying no study had been done indicating what damage might be impacted to our parish. And that needs to be clarified. Everybody got that? How bad, all our bad faith here? Well, let's talk about another area that's covered in the report. I want to say it's Appendix C. It covers from pages 17 to page 30, where they talk about how underhanded St. Martin Parish was in its adoption of an ordinance requiring a permit to remove any kind of levee, including a small bank in this parish. That is ordinance number 21-07-1327. In that response, in those, what is that, from pages 17 to 30, in those 13 pages or so, they talk about how invalid our ordinance is. That ordinance is unconstitutional. Spent a great deal of time talking about how it offends the commerce clause of the United States Constitution, how it's vague and overbroad. Well, what we failed to tell everybody is that very same issue was adjudicated in a federal lawsuit filed by LCG seeking a declaratory judgment that they did no wrong. The federal court said, we dismiss those arguments, we don't find any constitutional effect in that ordinance. The one issue about the ordinance that is raised is that we didn't follow the processes of our home rule charter and adopted it. I don't want to make a lot of comments on that, because that might be an issue that needs to be litigated in the 16th Judicial District Court, because we have pending, we in St. Martin Parish has pending in the 16th JDC, a suit seeking a mandate, seeking an order from the court for LCG to put small banks out. Our ordinance is valid. We passed that ordinance like we passed every ordinance we passed 25 years. Yeah. Well, did it have a nexus or relationship to what LCG had done? It didn't what it did. Was it to target LCG? Remember, we were learning in 2021 about the core permits and all this. Was it targeting LCG? No. It was prompting us to realize one thing, that we needed a strong ordinance to make sure that people didn't remove flood control devices. Our floodplain ordinance didn't have it, so we put that mechanism in there. our attention was directed to it because of the LCG activities. Nobody was targeted. And let me tell you what's good about that ordinance. You know what it says? That if somebody wants to fool with any sort of flood protection structure, including a levee, man-made or otherwise, if anybody wants to deal with a flood control substance or a flood control thing like a levee or an abatement, a permit has to be obtained, which requires not approval of the administrator, but the approval of the parish council. And why did we put into that ordinance the parish council needs to approve it? Because it talks about flood control, and it gives the public an opportunity to know about it and to come here and comment on it. I think it's a very strong ordinance. And I have no problems defending the ordinance nor the work we did in implementing and adopting that particular ordinance. By the way, it was vetted by our attorneys that we had hired to represent the citizens. So, believe it or not, I'm about ready to wrap up. Unless y'all got some questions. Couple of things I want to point out. This has been very difficult. It's been difficult on me. I think it's been difficult for members of this council who are involved with this. Because you see, we took the steps that we wouldn't comment, particularly after the litigation was instituted. As a matter of fact, they had to put a muzzle on Chairman Tozak. He lose his temper and pick up the phone and call tornadoes. Anyway, we took care of that. So it's been very difficult to listen to all the stuff that's been propagated about how bad we are, how backwards we are, how we don't know what we're doing. It's been very difficult to sit on my hands, to sit on your hand. I told this council on March 15th, 2022, told my staff the next day, I said, we're about to undertake a major battle. And we're going to be on the island. We're going to be by ourselves. Don't expect people to come and rally around us. By and large, they have not. But I get it. It's okay. We're big boys. Don't need nobody fighting about us. We didn't give up. We didn't back down. We stood up and we said we will not allow the sovereignty of this parish to be trampled upon. And I'm proud of the council, the previous council, proud of this council. But it's been difficult. Every Thursday we had to hear comments about this, especially as the Corps began investigating the removal of the small lakes. I really think that the staff, especially during my tenure, really needs to be congratulated because it was hard on them, because they had friends. They would come in and y'all hear what they say on the radio, y'all see on Facebook, y'all see this and that, and it was hard, you know. But that's okay. That's okay. Because look what the headline said. So, one thing I want to ask you to do, don't give up. We got this pending lawsuit, we need to stand our ground. And the fact that there's a pretty good people now, not back at consolidated government running the show, without a lot of respect on really good straight shooters. But we got our people too. Okay? That's where our obligations lie. And let me say it again. If anything I did constitutes bad faith, unfair dealing, well, I'll tell you what I did. And You wanna characterize it, or anybody else wants to characterize it as that, go right ahead, because I would do the same damn thing again. But maybe I'd hire the lawyers quicker, okay? But we did nothing wrong. And, wow, I won't go there. Let's just say this. That I hope the public understands that we had nothing to do with the length of time this has taken to even get to this point. But also tell you it's gonna take a long time, March 15th, 2022. And I think that these things will take a while. But I think we're on solid ground relative to defending every single solitary step that we took during this ordeal. And I think that the audit supports the findings of the Louisiana Legislative Auditor, supports the position. We also argued that it was a violation of federal regulations. We're not the only ones with that opinion now. So that's all I have to say. I want to thank the parish president, I want to thank the council for giving me the opportunity to be here to respond. Partly on my behalf, but on behalf of the public. I won't be hypocritical, I didn't want to say a lot. But I want to thank you for that opportunity. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
You see, I have a question, because when we first found out this all makes it approved, you just went through hip surgery, if I remember right. And so then very next morning, me, Mr. Portier, member of the sheriff's department, along with our public works director, we went out there, and we were the first ones to put our eyes on it from St. Mark Parish to see what had happened. And from that point to where we are now, and reading some of the legislative, auditor's report, I just have one question. It's one question that's, I've been asking ever since we started this, because the way it was done and how it was handled. Do you think there was criminal, what they did, do you think there was criminal, how would I put it? Do you think somebody could be held to criminal charges for this?
I said I would answer your questions, and I will, Mr. President. When I reviewed this report, I took notes as I went through it, 2 separate legal pads. Took notes about the conclusions, and I kind of took a little T-sheet about is this criminal. Couple of things I want to say. Number one, I don't know why to go to jail. That's not our goal. Our goal is not that anybody be prosecuted. It's not our interest. What is our interest?
In the small things like that.
Yeah, okay. So I want to let everybody understand. And I know a little bit about criminal prosecution. Did a little bit of it in my life. Quite frankly, I think it was pretty good at it. So, couple things. I want to answer your question, all right? Whether this is criminal activity, never has been, and is not now a focus or concern. But I think there's some factors that need to be considered. Why now? Why the legislative auditor findings now? Dated August 13th, 2025. I first met with the legislative auditor's office on August 2nd, 2022. I think we spent about half a day. I gave him a history of this. Great guys. Very important. On August 3rd, at the request of those investigators from the legislative auditor's office, I arranged for us, for me and those auditors, to go to the site. I called the St. Martin Parish Sheriff's Office and asked the sheriff if he could accommodate us to his water patrol division. And the sheriff said, yeah, you need a boat? I said, yeah. He said, well, I might give you a boat, you can't drop the car. I said, it's a boat. He said, okay, well, I'll give you a deputy to take you out. And he did. And we went out there, and they took measurements, they viewed, they took photographs. And then I shared with them additional data that our engineer had prepared, and we gave it to them. August 2nd, August 4th, 2022. We're 3 years down the road to get this fine. I just wish it would have been a little quicker. I think too, the question needs to be asked. Where are the regulatory agencies? This audit report opines, as many other people have opined, that there's clear violations of the Clean Waters Act of this country and the River and Harbors Act. Folks, in the middle of the night, they lock the navigable waterway. Read the legislative report about the damages that were done to the embankments and how some of the release of the sediments associated therewith are violations of the Clean Waters Act. Where are these regulatory agencies? They've been aware of this since February of 2022 when they were removed. Where are they at? I think that's a legitimate question. We go forward. Not every illegal act. Every time you see a word illegal, that doesn't mean criminal. Okay, it means it's violation of some laws. But whether or not this was criminal, let's look at some facts. Number one, the punitive nature of this project. It was executed over at night in one day, or one month. Why? The audit report, and this I did not know, the audit report reflects that this project within a small group of people, Lafayette Consolidated Government, was given a code name, Apollo. A code name. They wouldn't refer to it as the removal of the small bank when they communicated it. How's the Apollo project going? The legislative report has some copies of email exchanges to that effect. Why? Why? Now, on three separate times, officials with LCP, including your attorney, I think it was the Attorney General of Police, as I recall, three separate occasions. I want to say pages 7 through 10 of the audit report, but don't hold me to that, please. Two or three separate occasions, we'll say that. They were asked, why did you do the project under cover of night? Why did you do it so secretly? Do you know what the response was? Because Chesterfield would find out and he would have stopped it. Well, here's my response to that. It's what we Baptists say in church. Amen. Because I would have stopped it, okay? They're right about that. That's one thing about all of this I would agree. If I found out about it, they would have been stopped. We would have been. But why would they have been scared of me trying to get an injunction? I think that's an important factor you need to consider when you evaluate your question. Now, let's look at another factor. December of 2021, LCG requested bids for an as-needed contract for the excavation of dirt in Lafayette Parish. The bids came in ranging from the low bid of $390,050 to a total of $1,097,500. Now, and no single factor that I'm talking about needs to be examined by itself. You need to look at all these factors I'm talking about in their simplicity, all right? I've been around enough bids, as you have, to know and to kind of scratch your head when your low bid is $390,000 and your high bid is $1 million. That sometimes sends a bell to me. Something may not be quite right. Well, the next lowest bid after the 390.50 bid was $568,000. That is still about 60% greater than the low bid. And you're talking about the cost of a dirt. And it just, to me, if I'm looking at this independently to see if there's any kind of issues from a wrongdoing perspective, I think I would first know why the difference in the bid amounts. Seems to be a very wide range that ought to arouse some suspicions. Moreover, the bids were open December 9, 2021. Wait a minute. In October, we're meeting here about modeling, okay? They're outbidding this as-needed contract. And why is that important? Because 4 days before this project started to remove the spoil banks, that $390,050 low bid was subject to a contract amendment, increasing the amount of the bid, or the amount of the cost for the spoil bank removal to $3,699,800. Over 10 times or 100 times, I don't know what the math is, I never was good at it, especially doing that. From $360,000 to $3.9 million, or $3.6 million, think about it, no bid. There was not a bid of that. And it was outside the scope of the contract, obviously, because the contract, the as-needed contract was bid for working Lafayette Parish. Here they are amending it to provide for removal of small banks in St. Martin Parish and increasing the amount from $390,000 to $3.6 million. Those weren't red flags. And it was 4 days before the execution of the contract. This project took place on February 22nd. They're ending the contract on February 18th. Then, you gotta look at the components of that amended contract. Page 8 of the report. Legislative Auditor's Report. Listen to the figures. And I'm not accusing nobody of anything, I'm just stating facts and why they may arise some suspicions. Expedited mobilization, $1,858,000. Tree clearing, $4,800. Excavation and fill, $260,000. Barges, temporary bridges, cranes and riggings, $1,192,000. Ramps, $238,000. Mechanics, standby mechanics, $117,000. Patrol boats, $30,000. Two questions. Why is all this necessary to move dirt? I can tell you why. Okay. Second question, are these amounts reasonable? Well, if they were trying to get this done under cover of night without me finding out or anybody else, I guess they had to expedite the thing. So it cost them $1.8 million. barges, temporary barges, cranes and rigging, if you wanna do it during the day, I don't think you would cross a navigable waterway, so you wouldn't need barges, cranes and rigging. Ramps, wouldn't need ramps, $238,000. Mechanics, standby, $117,000. This took place, I guess, over a course of 8 hours, maybe at most. For mechanics to stand by, $117,000. They complain about legal fees. You get the point? Okay. Are those charges reasonable? Now, two questions. Why do we need this? Second, are they reasonable? It would seem to me, I think, let me say this, it would seem to a reasonable person, I submit to you, that at this point, that project was not being planned, it was being conspired. There was no planning. There was some conspiring. All right. I have read, I don't think it was in this report, maybe it was, that supposedly there was 260 cubic yards of dirt moved from St. Martin Parish to Lafayette Parish side, 260 cubic yards. And look, guys, I can't even show the dirt, but, say that's too much for me. Boy, that sure seems like a lot of cubic yards to be able to move at night over temporary barges over an navigable waterway. So I think something maybe somebody needs to think about it. Question, is that even reasonable? Are these charges even reasonable? Now, consider this, that Lafayette Consolidated Government signed sales of this property, they purchased the property, and the sales were signed, dated February 21, 2022. The project is starting that evening, or the day, or the next evening, okay? More importantly, those sales were not brought to the courthouse to be recorded until the morning of March 9, 2022. Now, what's interesting about that recordation date, March 9, 2022? Remember our telephone conference on March 8th when I first found out about it? When I first talked to the administration, said, hey, did you move the spoil bank? Yes, that was on March 8th. What happened on March 9th? The sales were now being recorded. No permits were obtained, neither federal nor local. Permits, everybody says, particularly, a lot of reports says it was required. And we were told core permitting was required. Potential violation of law for the Clean Waters Act, rivers and harbors. Supposedly, LCG was operating under an emergency ordinance as a result of flooding in May 2021. Folks, we're in 2022. So you tell me, is this worthy of consideration? Is this worthy of some sort of prosecutorial eye to evaluate all of these factors I mentioned to you? Do you really need an old country lawyer, has been, want to be, to answer that question? I think each and every one of you can answer it. Have I responded for you, Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, I think you answered my question. Ms. Alexander, you have a question? You're not asking the same question I just asked.
Before your questions, let me say something. Any sort of consideration, I'm not saying anything's criminal, okay? I'm not saying that. there's some reason to look at it very closely. But I think any prosecutor will have some jurisdictional questions. You know, who has jurisdiction? Time limitations. There's certain periods of time within which crime has to be charged. What's the motive? Motive is generally not an element of criminal offense, but as a prosecutor, you kind of want to know what the motives are that drives misconduct. Okay? So there are some things that would need to be looked at. Anyway, yes, sir.
Mr. Cetus, can you tell us who from LCG stated that it was okay to remove the Cypress Island small bags because Cypress Island is only a swamp in central Parish?
There was talking points that were developed, apparently, and a lot of the comments were made, you know, statements were made, well, you know, what we gotta do is we wanna restore everything to its natural state. We want the water to flow into the Cypress Island Swamp, and then we want it to flow out of the Cypress Island Swamp. So that's just talk that people use to misdirect one's consideration, okay? And that always bothered me, because I always made a statement, is quit calling it Cypress Island Swamp, it's Cypress Island Community, no more. Number two, you realize when there's an issue with the permitting, now, I'm not an expert on this, but when there's an issue, we have backflooding that goes all over the road. I can remember the rains in May, the week of May 14th, and the week of May 21, torrential rains, not thunderstorms, but rains. We had to close Prairie Highway, if you remember, portions of Little Ridge Highway, because of the flooding from the wind. So, I don't think there was, I think a lot of people were using, and had the idea that the water, the volume of water, the rate of flow would be increased when the small banks would be removed, and that it would be in a swamp and not affect businesses, residents, infrastructure, which is simply not true. And it's another thing to consider. Probably that's the question. Just occurred to me. You know, a question that members can ask. Do you know what that dirt is today?
I do. I saw it.
The dirt was moved from St. Martin's side, and it's now a levee on Lafayette side. So if the small banks are so terrible that you have to remove them, why do the small banks still live on Lafayette side?
Directly across.
I think I know what I'm saying. The core issue was the cease and desist. They quit working in that area, so we couldn't. We had plans. This might be a difference. We had plans to move that dirt away, even from there. If that's the case, why did they pay that contract for $3.9 million if the contract called for the removal of the dirt from Lafayette away?
Not only
Follow
that,
what I'm saying? I mean,
not only that, but they put the dirt on their side, they would remove the cypress trees and oak trees and you remember that, they went up there, they cleared their piece out to build a retention area on their side.
oh, I know.
Right behind the Golden Country Club. Yeah, they took all our trees to get it to the dirt to put on their side.
Anything else?
Like I said, thank you, Mr. Cetus, we appreciate it.
That's it for today. That's what you want to say.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned. St. Martin Parish Council Administrative Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, August 19, 2025 at 6:15 is now called to order.
Item 1, Sheriff Beckett Brew and Executive Director of Support Services, Dana Alcati, St. Martin Parish Sheriff's Office to give a presentation on the STAR Substance Abuse Team for Addiction and Recovery Program.
Sheriff?
Thank you. I'm also won't take an hour and 15 minutes.
You sure?
Yeah, I won't. Look, I wanted to tell you, it's about partnerships, and this program has been a great program, and without the council and Parish President, it surely wouldn't have been possible. I'm going to introduce Dana, our colleague, who's going to talk to you about the program and tell you what we have accomplished so far the past 6 months, 7 months. Please.
Hello, thank you for allowing us to come and present about this. Usually people, start with talking about the program. The program is substance abuse team for addiction and recovery. So now it hasn't all been 6 months. I would say we started getting those results and being able to serve people 3 months ago, since May. People need the services, people are eager to receive the services, and there is not one individual on those clients that have not been evaluated. There's a plan for them for recovery or rehabilitation. They have been placed. Some of them are still in, some went out and got help afterwards. It's not only the patients, it's the families, the environment, what they need after that. And it's all in the continuum of services that we provide to help this community and to help those individuals. So, it's very impressive to see those final results. Again, re-entry program, that's a program in jail. Any incarcerated individual is being evaluated and then assessed by a professional healthcare individual. And there is a plan recommended. Some of them, we cannot take them out of jail for certain reasons. Others are being taken out of jail to treatment and then returned back to jail or just being out of jail, and then they go through all the level of the treatments. Some of those that are allowed referred to us by the judges will just order reduction 4% from the 43%, and the rest is referrals, which is 53%. That includes 911, walk-ins, by appointment. Again, mention it, we do it. Not everything is going great. We see what the community needs and we're accommodating that. We have some roadblocks, but with the right people on the table and the help of the community and the support, we're getting to that point. And I think we wanted to show results because results will talk more than anything and speak to y'all and the community. Any questions about that?
Any questions from the council? Mr. Duncan, you have a question? Any questions?
No, I was with the sheriff and with Ms. Dana, previously and giving the numbers that are now being put forth before the public. Very impressed, and the good things happening and good things to come. I'm not an expert in these areas. However, from what they're telling me and so forth, I'm looking to get additional information and make sure that, apparently what's being put on the table and what's happening is occurring within our parish and helping the individuals that we know where it's going and the bang for the buck is occurring. So my hat's off to y'all. Looking forward to additional movement forward and for the people of St. Louis Parish. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, sir.
One thing I'd like to just stay on is, when this money came into the parish, the opioid money and everything to do, it was for rehabilitation. At that point, the council, members of the council, we knew that we didn't have the staff and the facilities, we didn't have the expertise to do this program. One thing we knew is for sure is we didn't want our money to partner up with our neighboring parishes. That's because we just wanted to make sure our money stay here locally, and they help the local people in this parish. And a conversation we had with the sheriff and was, listen, we want to help the people rehabilitate. We want to get these people back. We want them to be productive people in the community. And we want to make sure the money stays here locally. Can we put a program together? I think y'all put a state-of-the-art proposal here, show we're willing to do a lot and actually do and get done. The results are here. I can tell you that this money well spent on our part, partnering up with the sheriff's office. I can tell you that on my my side of the council, just, my perspective on this, is we did the right thing by doing it. I think any additional funding that would come in would be a good deal to partner up and continue this program. If we put more funding in it, if we were able to receive additional funding, I think we'll work together. I think we should keep doing what we're doing and help the people of St. Martin Parish and continue to get people back out of a bad situation, put them in a better situation.
Well, look, and I said it's about partnerships, I'll talk to y'all about partnerships, and doing this and putting the people with their connections, that's what's important. When we did interviews, Ms. Carla was on the interview board, and we did the right thing. You know, and if the money wasn't doing and showing the results, I sure would give it back. The doctor the chief medical doctor from McKinney Ambulance called me last week, and I'm proud to say he goes from Texas to Louisiana. He has reviewed and talked to people about programs like this that's have failed or hasn't been successful. He said by far this is the most successful program we've seen in Louisiana and Texas. We are years ahead, and Dana, I'm gonna pat her on the back. She's done a great job, and she's an asset. But let me tell you, when you're affecting the people before they go to jail, to keep them out of jail, that's how it goes. And when they're in jail, to get them a job, it doesn't stop with helping them. It goes help them get a job. It puts them on the right track. It's follow-up. And that's what we want. And look, I want to commend the council and the parish president and, you know, Chester Cedars, who was there before, for helping us do this and making this what it is. And it would be an example for others to follow. And I want to commend y'all because y'all did this. Couldn't have done it without you, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Ms. Alexander, you have a question?
That's for the sheriff, I have a question for you. Can you explain what you mean by re-entry? The 43%. Is that client that re-enters the program?
No, sir, reentry program is specifically for any individual that gets committed into the jail, incarcerated people, all incarcerated people that have a problem with addiction in mental health, or addiction and mental health together or separate, they get evaluated. It's a program to rehabilitate those individuals, to get them ready when they get out of jail. We gotta make sure that they're ready not to commit the same crime or problem or go back into addiction again. We wanna get those individuals and make sure that they're ready to go back into the community and give the community and have hope, to have some hope for tomorrow. We wanna treat them while they're in there. If we can catch them before they even come to jail, that is what we're doing now. Whenever they identify any problem like that, on the scene, we get calls, we try to send them to facilities to get treatment. Criminal charges that we can stop them from getting out to their jail. So that's what we call re-entry program.
Well, is there a program like that in St. Martin Parish?
Absolutely, it's already going on
Where
in
is it
jail.
located?
It's at the jail. It's within the jail right now. We have someone that helps them get jobs, or like I said, if you need help, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's mental illness, or whether it's getting a job, helping them get a job, that's what we wanna do. If we can improve their livelihood and help individuals get jobs, they won't revert back to stealing and doing that. But when you're addicted to drugs, you're fighting that. They have to want help, and they have to help us put them on the right track. Because addiction is always fighting, and I call it the devil, it's always fighting the devil every day. You know, just because they're not on drugs doesn't mean they're not fighting that want and that passion to go back to that drug. But look, in re-entry, yes, it's great, and that's, you know, we're doing that, but you know, what's just as important is 160 people that came off the street, that came before they got in trouble, before the people who wanted to commit suicide. I don't know if y'all realize that 200% of kids between the age of 10 and 14 are reverting to committing suicide. 200% increase. And our kids, you know, that's our future. There is an issue there, and we're not just helping adults, we're helping the kids, and it's from the kids all the way to the elderly. You know, we're helping them and putting them on the right track, because when they're on drugs, they're gonna see what's in their tank. They're gonna take everything, and we have to prevent that. And that's what Dana has done a great job in.
Is there a cost for on your client?
Absolutely not.
No
It's
cost.
on chart. It's
Well, let
free.
me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Maybe your board can answer this question, then that's gonna be it for my question. I have a grandson that's 31 years old, he's incarcerated in St. Andrew Parish. He's not a bad boy, but he's addicted. He's gonna be released on probation in 2 months. From St. Andrews, they're gonna transfer him here in St. Martin Parish. Okay. Can you talk to him in St. Andrew Parish, or he have to wait till he gets here in St. Martin?
The thing is, we're helping the people of St. Mark Parish, but our goal is, and this is the goal, we're presenting this to other agencies. And St. Andrew Parish can't talk to us, we weren't ready to present it yet because the program hadn't kicked off. But our goal is to get every agency within Louisiana to get on this. Agencies are sending their money, opioid money back. Because they don't know what to do with it. There's restrictions on what you can and can't do with the money. And they send their money back. And our goal is to give them a blueprint on how to do it. Look, it's not a secret. I don't want it to be a secret. I want everybody to be able to do it. And, you know, they want to have a conversation, we'll show them the blueprint. We want to. I'm talking to, you know, Lafayette, is talking to us about it, and there's other agencies that want to do it, and we're welcome that. We want to. And if he's a resident and becomes a resident of St. Mark Parish, you pay the people of St. Mark Parish to get help. And we're gonna help the people of St. Mark Parish. We help other agencies so they on the right track to help their own people, but, you know, I was voted in by 54,000 people, I'm gonna help 54,000 people. That's my people, our people. That should be.
But he's gonna be a resident of St. Martin Parish in about 2 months. That's where he was born in St. Martin Parish.
And listen, everybody just got mail out 16,000 homes, 16,400 homes. It tells them exactly what to do. There's a video that, with the parish president, council member, Ms. Carla Jean-Baptiste, that tells them exactly, this is the person, this is what goes on, and this is the number, 394 help. That's the number you call, and that's the number that's gonna get you help. But they have to want help, Mr. Vincent. You know, I can't force someone to get help. We'll give them the tools to be on the right track, and I'm sure that everybody got a family member, they know that they could use their help.
Commissioner Jean-Baptiste.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to summarize. I asked Dana and Sheriff Roy to come because they know I gave them a hard time with getting this together. I myself am a substance abuse counselor, licensed professional counselor, specialized in addiction. And so this is kind of dear to me. I've been in the field for roughly about 20 years. And this is an issue that I've seen attack not just the individual, but the family, the kids, cousins, extended family, the whole 9 yards. And so, with that being said, I do want to commend you, because I had some concerns, and Dana and I were laughing today. She reminded me that I gave her a hard time in the interview, because my question was, you're not from the community, how can you connect? My main goal and focus was to make sure that we were servicing everybody, to be able to cross boundaries and barriers for services. So to give you a simple term of what I've seen with the STAR program, the component that's been missing and that's really needed, this is, I'm gonna say, one of your elite case management programs. And what it is gonna do is, Mr. Vincent, when your nephew gets out and he's a resident of the parish, contacting Ms. Dana will give him that support to link him up with aftercare services, to link him up with a sponsor. If he needs job, he has to stay involved in that recovery process, because as we all know, if you don't have nothing to do, the sheriff to find something for you to do. So, I'm really impressed with the numbers. When you're looking at just the referral from the referrals and the judges, that's 57%, of new people that's coming in. And I'm glad we were able to tap in from the re-entry, because those are some people that drug court probably couldn't take because of violent, offensive, and whatnot. And so with the STAR program, being able to be a case manager, no matter where those individuals go, and as Dana and I were talking, they can follow those individuals. So if they go to inpatient treatment and that doesn't work for them, maybe the level of care was too high, so we can come back and refer them to an outpatient where they can still keep a job or take care of their family. And from our conversation, there's a lot more that's gonna be coming up, through this process. So I'm really excited to see where this continues, to go. And I commend you, Sheriff, for the work you've done. Cause I know I gave y'all a hard time, and I'm staying on top of y'all,
Right,
cause this is dear, to my heart.
and that's what we want. I talk about partnerships, of course, we can't do this without the judges, without the district attorney's office on people incarcerated or charged with crimes. So it's a partnership with the community, not just us, but it's the whole community as a whole, and it's working, it really is working, and like I said, I want to commend y'all and everyone we work with for this being a success. Okay, pat yourselves on the back for this.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Also, I think, Brooke is gonna send you, for the video to watch, you could actually go out on the Facebook page and they'll send you the link, for you'll be able to go back and look at the video. Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Two, Recreation Board of Directors Supervisor Roger Duval to give a presentation on the recreation program.
Mr. Duval, if you still here.
Good evening, everyone. I was asked here tonight to give a summary of our recreation program over the past summer. We always begin registration in January and February, is our registration months. In that time, each individual park has their own dates. The date is best for their community is how they determine it. The coaches, in that time after the registration, we find coaches, separate the teams, order uniforms, all the things that prep for the season to begin. March is when we start practice. We practice for the month of March, and April and May are the months where we play our games. That's in that particular month. We do have a parish tournament that's hosted at the end of the year, at the end of May. We hosted it in Bro Bridge this year. Bro Bridge hosted because of the inclement weather. We felt that the weather was kind of bad. They have the turf fields now. It was a little better for us in case it would rain. We could get the games in. It worked out really, really well. Bro Bridge was nice enough to host that. The season lasts till May, with the exception of Park San Juanville and Catahoula. Their T-ball season extends into June, and that's because their individual choice is to move it to June. That's how they want to run it. So their T-ball goes to the month of June. Everything else ends at the end of May. The park in Cecilia is the practice schedule. We got a lot of teams to see it. It's a big park. It's a beautiful park, but we got a lot of people. And we got a lot of teams. If you pass in front of Cecilia, so you see this temporary fences in the front. That's because we need it for practice. Everybody practices. There's a schedule. We got all that done. The director in Cecilia coordinates all that. And like I said, Bro Bridge, they play all their games in Bro Bridge. If you look up at the graph, I don't know if you see the graph or not, I don't know if you have a copy, but I guess they can get you a copy if you do need one. I'll Mr. Raymond will get you one. The director for Bro Bridge, I can give you some numbers as to how many people are participating in each individual park. Tim Randall is the director in Bro Bridge and Park Party. He had 225 total registrations in Bro Bridge this past summer. That gave him 12 teams, 9 boys, 3 girls, in the different age groups. There was a total with 8 T-ball teams. That gave him a total of 20 teams. He had the games played in his park was 43 plus 23 T-ball games. So that gave him 66 games. 86 umpires were used because T-ball, we don't use umpires for T-ball, they just kind of coordinate themselves. Every other game has 2 umpires. So 86 umpires for Bro Bridge. 3 games were rained out. Even in Bro Bridge, they have rain out every now and then. And they play at Park Party. The Cecilia Park, Elaine Newall is the director. Cecilia had 265 registrants this year. They had 16 teams and 6 T-ball teams with a total of 22 teams. 9 boys, there were really 17, we had a 14U girls team, we had enough in Cecilia to register, but no other age, nobody else in the parish had a team that could, not enough registered to play against, so we had to refund their money, and unfortunately, you have to move on. So we had 59 games played in the park in Cecilia with 118 umpires and 24 T-ball games with a total of 83 games played. And once again, 3 rain-out games, and that's played at Paul Jail in Cecilia. Parks in St. Martinville, Charlotte Oob is the director in Parks, Wayne Oob, the director in St. Martinville. They consolidated this year to give them a better opportunity to field their teams. Their registration totals were 115. They had 5 softball and baseball teams, 3 boys, 2 girls, 4 T-ball teams with a total of 9 teams. 23 games played in parks. I think they played all I'm almost 100% sure that all of their games were played, home games were played in a park, in parks. 11 T-ball games were played, a total of 34 games played in their park. Like I said, they're together. 46 umpires, 3 rain-out games, and all their games are played at the park in parks. Catahoula, the director's Randall Savoy, he had 21 registrants in his park, 21. He had 1 boys team and 1 T-ball team. So he had 2 teams in the park in Catahoula. Played 4 home games, 3 T-ball games, and 7 games in the park total for the year, with 8 umpires being used. And that's just a summary of what went on in the parks this past summer. That's pretty much the coverage I have. If you have any questions, we can get you these numbers. These numbers are taken from the registration forms that were turned in by each individual director to me. So those numbers come directly from that. I'm not just picking them out of the sky. So they have to register every year. They have to turn it into me by a certain date, check age, all that stuff. And that's my summary. Any questions?
Any questions, Councilman? Mr. Louis?
I have a question. Is there any possible way we can get younger kids to play with older kids to be able to make teams? The problems I represent with small communities, and we have to combine teams. And right now, I think it's, from what I'm aware of, it's not allowed.
It's not allowed right now, and the philosophy behind that is that we understand that some of the parks do have problems fielding teams because of their numbers. We run a recreation program, and the definition of a recreation program is that everybody has to have the opportunity to play. And when we start skill leveling kids and grading them according to how good they are and moving them up to just, you're eliminating the people in the next age group. So if a 6-year-old plays with a 10-year-old, then there's a 10-year-old that's not playing. And a recreation program is supposed to be not skill level, it's supposed to be age level. That's the definition of a recreation program. If we would, and I understand that the numbers are, but that's why we're consolidating, when we can, those teams that need those numbers to come together. And we do the best that we can, we offer them opportunity, but if we move up in one area, age-wise, if we move an 8-year-old up to a 10-year-old, then that puts that 10-year-old at risk. No matter how good the parents think they are. They could be the best 8-year-old in the state of Louisiana, but they're still playing 10-year-olds against 10-year-olds. And a 10-year-old, the difference between a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old is a big difference. Especially some that are really, really skilled and some that are not. Stick with skill levels. No matter what age you are. And it goes the same. Now, some are capable. I'm not saying they're not capable. But those that are capable of moving up play in what they call select ball now. Those kids that move to select ball are their skill level is extremely, or should be higher. But they're not playing against the lower level skill. They're not pitching where that kid who's on the border of probably never playing again in his life or her life. You know, you're taking that away from them. And if we move that up for Cecilia, and we have to move it up for San Juan, and then everybody decides where they want to play, not where they should play. And if you're gonna go by a recreation program, a true recreation program, by definition, it's not by skill level. It's by their age group. That way, everybody's playing at that level where they should be by age. Is there a way to move them up to make the numbers count? We try to do that by Parks and San Juanville combined. You know, Catahoula they struggled this year, but have had 2 or 3 teams in the past. And I understand the numbers are low, but that's a geographic thing. You know, we're in Cecilia and Bridge, we're lucky. We just have the numbers. That's where the people are, you know, and that's where they're registered to play. You know, it's a controlled chaos at the Portland Big Night, you know, but it's controlled. And we're lucky, and in 10 years that could swap, that could completely change. But in the meantime, if we start changing the rules just for a specific area, then you have to change it for everybody, because they play against each other. You know, what the answer is, you know, whatever the rule is, it needs to be a rule throughout the parish, because they compete against each other. So we can't have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, because if that 8-year-old gets hit, or gets hurt, you know, then we as a group are gonna be liable for why you didn't play. Now, who determines how good that 8-year-old is to be playing against a 10-year-old?
Have we allowed them in the past to move up?
We've done some where we've gone from mostly in the girls, because those numbers, where we've gone from, let's say it's 11 and 12, and we don't have enough teams in the parish to do 11 and 12, well then we've done 11, 12, and 13. And as long as everyone is competing at the same, at that level, they have 13s on every team. You know, it's not all 13s playing against all 11s. So we gotta kind of watch that, because if all of the 13-year-old girls or the 13-year-old boys are playing against 11-year-olds, and it's, you know, it's just to make the teams go, it doesn't work, because then naturally, that should be the 13-year-olds are gonna dominate.
So what rules we use for the rec ball? What rules we follow?
Initially, the base rules are the USSSA rules. There are we do make some amendments to help coordinate our program, you know, to fit our program better. You know, we do eliminate some of the rules, we amend some of the rules, we change them, we make them a little tougher, a little less, just to kind of amend. For an example, 10-year-old girls pitching, they struggle pitching. At 10 years, the first time they pitch, and they're 9, so it's 9 and 10, so they struggle. It's throughout the parish, they struggle throughout the parish. The distance was 38 feet. We decided as a group, they weren't pitching strike, they couldn't do it. Let's move them a little closer, but not too close, because then the ball comes back too quick, then they get hit, right? So we decided, let's move it up to 34. It helped. It got them to pitch a little more strikes. Those rules we changed. All the other stuff, age-wise, we followed those age limitations, pretty much. You know, 5 and 6 is T-ball, 7 and 8 is coach pitch, 9 and 10 Mustang, 11 and 12 Bronco, 13 and 14 Pony. You know, and those are the ages that we follow. That's what's supposedly what the experts say is where they should be playing. You know,
Mr. Huball, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. White, the first year I got here and so forth, it's if we did have some little Johnny moving up this and that. And if selectively we were doing that for the right reason, and people were not abusing it, and correct me if I'm wrong, you had, if you open the floodgates, you had people moving at will up and down, little Johnny doing this, as Mr. Duval averted to. Let's say you have a 9-year-old and, well, he wants to play with his friends and he's 2 months late, we'll let him go play. And then you have the 10-year-old on the team he's going to that doesn't have the ability, and now he has to sit. So now you're almost penalizing the 10-year-old that's in the right place and moving someone. But we have any individual that, or any community that may be lacking in numbers. And I understand it may be a geography issue. However, they have the ability to go to another community. And, I know Catahoula may be an excluded, community due to geography, but they do have the ability to go to parks, or they do have the ability to say, or to Grow Bridge if they so choose, and et cetera. So, we're not denying anybody in the parish within these age groups to play ball. And I understand, but we have to draw some parameters because unfortunately, people take advantage. It's all good. The premise of why we're doing it is good. But people take advantage of it to where it was, for lack of a better word, screwing up the whole system. And it wasn't fair.
Oh, and I appreciate it. My goal was just to try to get every kid.
And then certainly,
And I understand how it can get that way because I was a coach and this and that.
Yeah, and I can tell you,
But I appreciate it.
we make every effort, I can assure you. I talk with them, we move them, we try, but what happens also is that, sometimes they don't wanna go. A little community like Catahoula, they're proud of who they are, and they don't wanna go play with you. They don't wanna, we wanna play with Catahoula, we don't wanna play with Parish, we don't wanna play with Grow Bridge, we wanna play in our own community. It's the same thing as you see in Grow Bridge. Grow Bridge has a phenomenal facility, turf everywhere. I was thinking, you know what, we're gonna lose some people from Cecilia, because they're gonna play on the turf, right? No, you wanna stay playing Cecilia, not that the fields are bad, we've got awesome fields, our park is wonderful. But, you think turf, I'm taking them there, but that's not what happened. Our numbers in Cecilia stayed where they are, and it's a difficult thing, but I can promise you, that we try our best to get everybody an opportunity.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that you can move.
Oh, yeah, they can go.
That answers my question. That's what
I'm gonna. Anybody else?
No, thank you, Mr. Duval.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good evening.
You too.
3060 Judicial District Judge, Suzanne Lumley. The requested inquiry with you on St. John Parish Court in memory and honor of Chantel Brown.
Ms. Hyde.
Thank you. I actually provided to Mr. Delpham a little brief summary, I don't know if y'all had an opportunity to read it, about Ms. Brown, but I'm gonna just be real quick. The judges got together at our last meeting. We wanted to be able to honor Ms. Brown. For those of you who had never had an opportunity to come in contact with Chantel Brown started working with the court as a law clerk. She eventually went with the public defender's office, helping families that were involved in child immediate care. If you're not familiar with child immediate care, that's when a child gets removed from the home by DCFS. Then she transitioned to where she was working for the DA's office, and eventually she came to St. Martin Parish. In St. Martin Parish, at the DA's office, she was doing juvenile delinquent work, child immediate care work, and also did support enforcement for the DA's office. For those that never had the opportunity to come across Ms. Brown, she was not only doing her job that she was required to do, like punch the clock 9 to 5 at the district attorney's office. Everybody she came in contact with, she wanted to make sure they had the best services they could get, and that she made an impact on all the families in our community. So for us in the judicial system, and also for our community in St. Martin Parish, it is a huge loss. For those that aren't involved in the court system, you might not realize, but for us, we can replace Ms. Brown. There can be another person in her seat doing her job, but there is not gonna be in any way, shape, and form that anybody can replace what she was able to do for not only the juveniles in St. Martin Parish, but also for the families in St. Martin Parish in our community. So the judges wanted to honor that memory. We have 3 courtrooms, for those that have not been to the courthouse in St. Martin Parish, we have 3 courtrooms. And courtroom 2 specifically, what we normally use for our juvenile cases, so the judges would ask the parish to be able to pass a resolution that allowed us to name courtroom 2 in honor of Ms. Chantel Brown. Any questions, comments?
Ms. Matisse?
Yeah, I can just comment. I had the luxury of meeting, Ms. Brown on the opposite end. I ended up having to go to a juvenile hearing, with my foster son. And one of the things that I really appreciated, they had about 115 people sitting in the gym, and she didn't rush through the cases. She actually sat and listened and found out what the concerns were. And some of it was just a matter of not passing on the information, or they not knowing the resource, or needing some help. And I observed her giving out, kind of like we talked about the case management with the sheriff's office. She was a case manager where she helped and linked people up with services to help them from that perspective. So she's truly missed, and for me it was heartbroken because I had called her that day, waiting for a call back and to connect her with some services for someone. And I'm like, man, she's not calling me back. And then that's when I heard of her untimely death in that situation. So she's truly a missing piece to our community. So I really support the idea of honoring her with the courtroom name. So we'll definitely take that up for our meeting.
Any other questions from council members? Mr. Alexander?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. You've heard it said you always have one.
Oh, no, you always ask a big question. That's why I like when you press your button.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to find out if, are y'all gonna have like a meet and greet, like besides just naming the courtroom number 2 in her honor?
I would propose, with the parish's permission, if the parish did agree to pass a resolution in her honor, that we have, not at the parish's dime, I mean, the court can do this, that we have a ceremony at the courthouse, inviting the public and also, her family, to some sort of ceremony that could be planned at a later date, if it was allowed. That would be my proposal, is that the court could.
Things like this in the past, we've done proclamations, we could do something that perspective, maybe to be able to honor her and to do the renaming stuff, we maybe get her family. We do it at one of our meetings, and if the judge would like to be more, I think, could we do that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, we can do something at the meeting, and then we could also
Do it on
do
your
something, I'm sure the judges would be completely agreeable to do something at the courthouse in that courtroom, so the people that wanted to see could see what's being done. And
I'll be willing to make a contribution or donation over it. You can put me down for
in
one.
my conversations with the parish president, I don't think it's really about funds. I think if there was something that needed to be done, it could be a small plaque that was placed outside the courtroom.
Well, that's good.
That wouldn't cost a lot of money.
That's good.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Something to look into.
Item 4, discussion of ordinance summary number 1514 OR, an ordinance amending chapter 19, St. Martin Parish zoning ordinance, appendix D, parish road zoning data sheets of the code of ordinances for the St. Martin Parish government body, amending the zoning classification district on a portion of a road zoned in the original ordinance adopted on December 18, 1995, parcel ID 05102B 3555 and Spruce Arbor Highway.
Ms. Allen?
Good afternoon. This is a rezoning that came in front of the planning commission on July 10th, this year. I'm not too sure, is someone, okay, hi, you can do this thing. Lindy is with J-Bro Enterprises, so this is the company who petitioned for the rezoning of the property on Ansbroussard Highway. So I'll tell you a little bit about it, and then if you have any questions, I'm sure she can kind of take over from there. The rezoning for this property is from I-1 light industrial to R1R, which is single-family residential restricted. The rezoning petition was for the purpose of a subdivision. So currently, right now, the property is light industrial, they're trying to rezone it to develop a subdivision. Total acreage right now is about 16 acres, and they're wanting to develop it into about a 45 lot development. I did receive calls from the neighboring, residents in the area, about 5 to 6 calls. A lot of the residents were concerned of what type of residential development. I did speak to Councilman Clay about it. I know you received some phone calls as well. A lot of them were concerned, like I said, about what type of residential development. Some thought it was a mobile home park. No, it's not. It was just residential development, brick homes, things like that. The rezoning signs were placed out front, 2 on each side, and then as well as the test news ads were ran 3 consecutive times. Again, it is here with you, in the hands of the council, because the planning commission, their recommendation was to approve it from I-1 light industrial to R1R. So if you have any questions for me, you can go ahead and ask, but if not, I'll turn it over to Ms. Lindy. She's with, like I said, J-Bro Enterprises. If you have any questions for her.
Well, I have, Ms. Alexander has a question.
Yes, I have a question for you. Okay, on this right here, can you give me an idea? I know Ansbroussard Highway, is it around Boudinot Road, where is?
So I'll tell you, do you know where the I-10, for the I-10 project, they had the debris, like the rock debris and the asphalt, they were dumping it? It's almost at the corner of Dermally College,
I know
and
exactly where you are.
it's that exact property that they're trying to
Well,
purchase.
that's where it would be. Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
it will be the same side, if you're going there, it's on the right side.
It's on the opposite side of the bayou, it's not bayou
Yeah,
property.
that's what I'm talking about. So,
Mhm.
I know where you're at.
Yep.
You know, I ain't gonna say that, but I know exactly where you're at now.
Mhm.
You know where I'm coming from, Chris?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
No question?
Any more questions? No questions from council? Nope, that's it, next one.
There you go.
5, discussion of ordinance summary number 1515 OR, an ordinance providing for an amendment to the year 2025 operating and maintenance budget. Six, discussion of ordinance summary number 1516 OR, an ordinance providing for an amendment to the expenditures of the year 2025 operating and maintenance budget for the Health Unit Maintenance Fund, Fund number 251. Seven, discussion of ordinance summary number 1517 OR, an ordinance to authorize St. Martin Parish government to sell by public disposition all of its interest in that certain tract of land situated in the parish of St. Martin, Louisiana, located at 3640E Main Highway, Grow Ridge, Louisiana, 70517, and further described in entry number 353237 in the official records of St. Martin Parish Clerk of Court that was adjudicated to St. Martin Parish government by tax deed, all in accordance with Louisiana Revised Statute 472201 and sec.
Mr. Dury, you wanna kind of?
Yes, so this is a nuisance property that I've personally been dealing with on behalf of the parish since 2021. We've been in and out of court on this property. It was tied up in a succession. No property taxes were being paid, because it was a deceased succession. Property's been adjudicated to the parish. Multiple neighbors have filed complaints, with the parish president on this property. And we had a neighbor who was eagerly wanting to purchase it to clean it. It is gonna be a massive cleanup. There's a 2-story residence. It's been home to dumping of washer and dryers, trash, junk, boats, cars, you name it, is there. The neighbors complain about illegal criminal activity. So everything's in order for the parish to sell it to the neighbor, and he is chomping at the bits to buy it. So I recommend you guys, when this comes up, to approve it, because it's nothing but liability to the parish. When these adjudicated properties get sold, we're looking at getting it back into commerce, not to make money. So we're looking at governmental liens, my costs, of course, to get us to this part, and property taxes. So, we're eager to get this, situated.
Thank you.
8, consider the adoption of a resolution proclaiming the week of October 5th through 11th, 2025 as Fire Prevention Week.
This is done annually.
9, consider the adoption of a resolution proclaiming the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
This is also something that's done annually.
10, consider the adoption of a resolution proclaiming the month of October as Head Start Awareness Month.
Another thing that we do annually.
11, Parish President Pete Delcom to present and discuss the updated plans for the expansion and renovation of Central Office Complex project.
Mr. Delphine?
Well, you should have in your packet the tentative or phase 1 preliminary sketch of the proposed annex. In reviewing it, if anyone has any questions, it is a scaled down version of the original project. In fact, to bring it to the budgetary number requested by the council, 1/3 of the original project was cut out. So I maximized square footage and was able to interject and include both the planning and zoning and the public works, absent the state, absent the office of the public works director, absent the small concession or break area, absent a small area, break area outside of the building, and cutting the parking lot in half, basically just servicing a small portion of the public works department. Inclusively, we were able to put in the clerk's file room, which will be an independent room, fire secured, and leading into Ms. Chantel's office, to where they have their own accessible clerk's office, clerk's file room to their office. So this is the project in which we were able to develop and try and bring into the budgetary number that the council had requested.
Thank you.
Any questions on that? I did have one other area that we needed to address in regards to this. Mr. Richard Minville, who handles all of our bond and all of our appropriation, these accounts, this grant in which the state had given us. August 18th, St. Martin Parish Governor received bids on the above reference, and he is reverting to Mr. Halftek. And anybody had any contact with Mr. Halftek in regards to the project? Okay. St. Martin Parish Governor received bids on the above referenced project on July 2nd, with the lowest responsive bid being over the funds available for construction. The parish has decided to not allocate additional funds to cover the difference and redesign the project and rebid the project. The parish is planning to send to you a formal letter from the parish president explaining this for your records. If you prefer something else and are required that the parish president's letter say something specifically, please let us know. This is the return from Mr. Halftek to Mr. Minville. A letter will be fine. I would ask that they include the reason the bids were rejected per the bid law. I revert back to Mr. Halftek. He gives a reason with the lowest responsive bid being over the funds available for construction. I need to ask Mr. Halftek if that is this is what he's questioning, and this is answering his question. If not, we're gonna have to develop that further. I would also include the documentation where the bidders were notified that the bids were being rejected for just cause. Mr. Guidry, the architect, upon the refusal of the project, initially sent out to the contractors that the bid had been rejected and that, for just cause, saying that there was not sufficient monies to take care of the project. Will the scope of work change with the redesign? If so, the parish should send a separate letter indicating what the scope will be and the reason for the change. We need to verify, and this is the sentence that I read and read again, we need to verify if the state will be able to participate in that scope of work. So, the project was denied. Again, we can see that it is a lot of things involved in redirecting a project with the state monies involved. The state has not given me, without giving the documentation they're requesting, we need to verify if the state will be able. It's just not a one and done. It's just not automatic. You know, we made decisions on a December 31st timeline to possibly lose that money, and it's not a one and done. I will actively reach out to Mr. Halftek to see if we can clarify what is being requested and see if we can then send to him whatever is needed to continue the process. Again, the architectural with the original design and so forth took 3 to 4 months. You have advertising of 30 days, you have pre-bid meetings, you have a contract that needs to be consummated and put together with all signatures, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a lengthy process. It's not a process that you can snap your fingers and it just occurs. We are on a timeline. We are on a timeline in which, again, December 31st, in the event that everything isn't put into play, there's a possibility that the monies would be rescinded. I would have wished that we have taken all of this into consideration. And I make no bones about it. I was very displeased that the monies were budgeted for the project. And with a $40,000 amount that was over the project budgeted, that the whole project was scrapped and 30% delineated from the project. That being said, we have a $1.5 million project on the table, and I will be presenting that to Mr. Halftek and try to answer all of his questions so that this project can be expedited in the most efficient manner possible so that we can get this thing done.
Mr. Alexander, you have a question?
Yes, sir, thank you. Mr. Joe, according to the design, that you're adding just 5 additional parking spots?
Well, first of all, again, we're on a budgetary, it's a budgetary process here. The first project being denied for $40,000. Now, if I could have redesigned and taken out the break area and redesigned and taken out a portion of the parking lot, or redesigned and taken out the small break area outside, we may have gotten that under that amount. That being said, I certainly don't want this project going over 1.5 and this be denied also. So I'm trying my best to be able to bring it under budget so that we can continue with the project and give the administration the much needed square footage that is needed for us to continue to operate.
Jean-Baptiste.
Mr. Duncan, that 1.89, was that inclusive of the architect fees and the contingency?
We had no contingency there. It was inclusive of everything else.
So that's more than $40,000.
So that would still need, we would still need to have a contingency because there would more than likely be some change orders.
The contingency was, required by FPNC.
So, but we still can't guarantee that we wouldn't have anything else, so what was pulled from that, we would, may have more than that, so we still need a contingency. And then that did not include the architect fees at 1.89, correct?
No, ma'am.
So the budget would have, the project would have been more like 2 million.
It was 1.8844 originally.
1.89 was the bid that came back, plus the additional cost for the engineering. The architect component was not included in that 1.89.
The architectural fees were taken from what? In the project? The project fund?
Yeah, which has the 1.844.
I didn't hear what he said.
The project fund that had the 1.844.
Yeah, I understand the funding was 1.84.
No, but that's for all, that's the entirety of the project.
Yes, but the bid that came back was 1.89. That was straight construction.
That's correct.
So you still, plus you have to add the architect fees, plus the contingency with that. So that project is not just a $40,000 is my point. It was more than that. So the project was more like 2.1 or close to 2 million. If you add those extras to that total amount. Cause I hear you stressing 40,000, but it's not just 40, because we had 100 and something for architect fees that needed to be added to that. So when you're looking at the total cost of that project, it's more than 1.89.
It'll certainly be more than that as to the effect that we have to spend another 150 for the.
Before we even get to that, just straight with that project, is 1.89 plus your architect fees, which was, please,
120,000.
120, so 1.89 plus 120, plus the contingency. And if you don't wanna add the contingency, if you just add that, that puts us right at $2 million for the project. So it's not just an additional 40,000, is my point if we're doing correct math. And I know you have math background, so it's more than 40,000. So it wasn't scrapped just for 40, it was scrapped with the additional fees that was added to that, that puts us over the budget, which was not part of what we thought that was gonna be happening, which wasn't supposed to be just construction, it was the cost. And I'm saying that because I advocated for that building, and my conversation with you was that we had the contingency, the architect fees with that, and that's what I advocated to the council, my peers with. So I just wanna share with you my concern that it was more than just 40,000, because when I met with you, when I realized we had 1.844, then I realized it was just 40 and not 90,000 that we had to come in. But then I find out after the fact, there's an additional architect fees that was not added to that budget. So I was just trying to be clear on the numbers. So it was more like 2 million instead of a 1.89. Total project, not just construction.
You're waiting for.
No question, that's just a comment, that's all I have.
So that would mean that we're way more than $40,000 over budget.
Correct.
Thank you.
And we also have projects in the, possibly one in District 2 that was 500,000 over.
Yes, and you know what? District 2 constituents deposited money on a regular basis with tax dollars. And that money was budgeted specifically to address roads. And so when that project came in, we had the funds available, and that was for the constituents. So there was no underhanded, there was no left out, there was no deception with the constituents about that project. And if it was done when I wanted to have it done, that project would have cost maybe $3 million. But of course, with COVID and the cost of supplies, that cost went up. So if we're gonna compare apples to apples, make sure we compare an apples to apples and not apples to orange. Because I did not leave anything out when my bids came in for that project.
Actually, the drainage was not inclusive in the project. So
What?
The drainage as we saw with Fence to Maker, was not inclusive in the original project. So that was the reason that it went from 3 million to 5 million. And that was the reason for the
Okay.
overage there.
And so, no disrespect to you, Jason, but that goes to your public works department, because the project goes to you, it's your job, administrative, to figure out what's needed. And so before you put it out to bid, you should have ensured with your department, says as your part, to make sure that everything was all inclusive. So when I realized, based upon what y'all saying, that drainage was needed to accommodate my residents, I'm not gonna shortchange them to continue to stockpile money. I'm gonna do what's right to make sure that they're able to receive what's needed.
I was not here when the original.
It doesn't matter, it doesn't
Excuse me,
matter.
excuse
You've been
me.
here long enough to take on that
No, it does
position.
matter.
No,
I
it
was
doesn't.
not here when the original engineering was done on this project.
But you was-
Is that correct?
But you was here
Is
when
that
the bid
correct?
went out, so it's
Was
your
I here when the
responsibility to
original
oversee
project
that.
was engineered?
So I don't have nothing else to say, because this excuse of you been here just a year, when you take the job, you take on all the responsibilities. When I took this seat, there was a lot of things that I didn't know. I made some bad decision based upon the information. I'm not gonna say bad decision, uninformed decision based upon not having the information. I came to you and I took responsibility. I told you I was accountable. I didn't try to hide nothing or shuffle it on and move it to the next step. So I want to continue to work with you in a peaceful manner, but I'm asking for you to have disclosure. I'm asking for you to have transparency. When I go and I have conversations with you, we go on site and we meet for hours with people, and for you to come back and not provide all of the information, that's very underhanded. Very underhanded. Now, I've done everything that I could to not have this audience filled with residents complaining about these bad letters of no objection that was sent out with no consideration for the residents that live in that community, that has invested money, so you can have a budget to do the things you do. But what we're not gonna do is compare apples to orange and play the blame game. I took responsibility, I'm providing my people what they needed with the resource that's available. When we talked about this project, I suggested to you on multiple occasions to exclude the Department of Health and Hospital with the sanitary department. So the same plan that you're presenting now is something that I mentioned to you a long time ago. I have continuously worked with you to try to get things on the right path, but this is uncalled for. Totally uncalled for. When I had a meeting with you, you were supposed to follow up, you did what you wanted to do, I never bothered you. But when the constituents come and complaining, I told them it was you that made the decision. Right now, we got residents that have called you, left message for you, and you have not yet returned their phone calls.
I beg to differ with that,
You
man.
want me to start naming people?
I beg to differ with that.
So with that being said, I don't have nothing else to say about this, other than the fact that this project is more than $40,000. It's $40,000 over, plus 120, Sean, you said 102? 120. You did the math, what is that? I mean, you work at the bank, what's the math? 160.
Excuse me. Excuse
I'm
me,
done with that.
please.
I'm done with that. This is our meeting. Chairman, I ask for a
regards-
point of order for us to be able to move forward.
I think we discussed this thing at length. I think it's time to move forward.
Item 12, consider appointments/reappointments to various committees.
Oh, let me go back to that.
Use your right, please.
Yes, for the water district, as you all may have been aware, Ms. Cynthia Davis, passed in the midst of her term, and so in your package, you'll see a recommendation from the water district to appoint Ms. James for that position. I will ask that she be here at the next meeting for you to be able to meet with her, and I would ask for you to strongly consider, appointing her for that position.
Thank you.
13, parish president's report.
Mr. Delco?
You have before you the listing of projects. Any questions on any of the projects or any updates that anybody would want to have on any of the projects that are listed?
Do we have any idea on the
Corps of Engineers.
Contacted them.
Corps of Engineers, they've been contacted, and it's, historically, it's a Corps of Engineers, and you really and truly, that's where we're at. As soon as I get word on it, we call every couple of months and get the same answers, it's in progress, and as soon as we get answers on it, we will let you know.
Any questions from the council? Mr. Melson?
I'm gonna ask this question, and I think it was answered previously, a long time ago, but someone reached out and asked again, and I wanna get, it's not a gotcha thing, I just wanna get refreshed on this. Lake Martin Road, as far as what's going on with that, is that something we're waiting on the Corps of Engineers as well, or something with the state or whatnot? And I'm asking simply to be able to answer some questions that was presented to me. I really don't know. This has been dormant for so long, so I genuinely don't know. So any light you can shed on it.
From what I understand, what the the road is in the servitude of the levies, and, I think we're waiting for a response. I think that's what we were, Jason.
For which road?
Lake Martin Road, the closure of Lake Martin Road, the real.
The one around Lake
Rookery
itself.
Road.
Oh, Rookery Road.
Yeah, I guess I should have said that.
That road right there is just a gravel road, and we work it as often as we can. But it's not a sound road. It's in the lake, it's in the middle of the lake. So it's not a safe road to drive on, that's why it's closed right
Okay, and then as far as, are we, the parish, waiting on anything from anybody else to reopen it, or?
now. We did a bunch of, engineer studies on it back probably 5-6 years ago.
And that's the question that was asked, is the parish waiting on the?
Simply put, we need $1 million. I mean, it would have to be, to the base, in which it's in a swamp.
Yeah.
And then rebuilt, and even though it is a limestone, there is no base, and
So there's no real
Once-
sound foundation to?
no, and if, in the event that you would put this money into it, if there would be another flood or an overture of water, it's not guaranteed that it's gonna hold. So you have to make a decision, first of all, do we have $1 million, and second of all, just be prepared in the event that it ever floods again, we may be back to square one.
And I think there was some questions about the servitude, the levies on the boundaries of the lake, the road was built on top of the servitude.
See that, I do not know it, I don't look back in there.
I can remember when Jill was here, when we first had the problem stuff, when it came up, there was a discussion about that we maintain the road, it was the levies were out.
Yeah, I know we try to maintain it and grade it as often as we can, not as much now, since it is closed. But the road itself is it's not a safe, passable road because of the foundation.
And that's fine, that answers the question, so I can present some answers.
Thank you.
Reports, statements of revenues and expenditures and balance sheet for July 2025 were submitted.
This meeting is adjourned.
I was sitting right here. So how was
I was sitting right here, this angle, maybe now. So I think the next, I finally realized the phone, 72 hours or whatever right after.
I said, no, they did not give him a.
We're only inviting.
All right.